News from another investigation. 4 people will face prosecution over the downing of Malaysia Airlines Flight 17. The plane, as you recall, it crashed in eastern Ukraine 5 years ago, killing 298 people. 3 Russians and a Ukrainian have been named as suspects by international investigators. Nick Paton Walsh is in London with more. And Nick, ahead of this release, we were expecting names. We were expecting charges. Tell us more, and what more did the investigators reveal?
Well, we have the names now, and we have also what these prosecutors and police, part of the joint investigation team, detail as a reasonably convincing chain that links all the way back to senior officials inside Vladimir Putin's government as to how that Buk anti-aircraft missile came to be in eastern Ukraine and shoot down that MH17 aircraft with 298 people on board. Remember, they're on the way back home to the Netherlands from a holiday in Malaysia. Now, let me give you the names of the individuals mentioned here. Oleg Girkin, Sergei Dubinsky, Oleg Pulatov, and Leonid Harchenko. I should say Igor Girkin, forgive me, sorry. 4 individuals who prosecutors say did not press the button. They're still investigating who did that, but were the chain of how that weapon came to be inside eastern Ukraine. Now, there's a lot of documentary evidence here, amateur video. As you can see in what you've shown behind you there, they took the wreckage of the plane and reconstructed it to show the path of missile fragments that broke it seems, in 2, tore the cockpit off, leading to all those bodies, all that luggage. I saw myself and many other people in the fields of eastern Ukraine, simply landing in empty agricultural areas. What next with this investigation? Well, they will move forwards to March next year to a secure facility in Schiphol in the Netherlands, where they will begin a trial, probably in absentia. These men will have state-appointed defenders for them, but they're not going to look to extradite them from Russia. 3 of them are said to be in Russia, 1 in eastern Ukraine, because they accept Russia will not extradite its own citizens. We just interestingly heard, though, from the Ukrainian prosecutor on the JIT. He said they will attempt to arrest the Ukrainian citizen, Leonid Harchenko, who is thought to currently be in eastern Ukraine, occupied by separatists. Christine?
Why is Russia not willing to hand over 3 of its own suspects for this trial? And what has been Russia's response to the downing of MH17?
Well, Russia has said it wasn't to blame. It's pointed in the past to how this could possibly have been a missile that had fallen into other people's hands. Look, all that, frankly, is blown out of the water by the very convincing and painstaking evidence the Dutch have put together in this joint investigation team, 4 other nations assisting as well. The Russian constitution doesn't enable Russia to extradite its own citizens. Remember the case of Alexander Litvinenko poisoned in Britain. One of the suspects of that wasn't extradited because of the same legal kind of loophole, you might argue. The prosecutors in the Netherlands are saying, well, listen, these men have given many media interviews in the past. Why don't they talk to us? They hope Russian officials will interview them on their behalf. All of this is slightly pie in the sky, given that Russia doesn't really buy the Dutch version of events, although a Kremlin spokesperson did call the downing of MH17 a horrific tragedy before this particular press conference. But it is quite stunning. They played during the press conference a phone call between the Prime Minister of what was called the Donetsk People's Republic, still is now, Borodai, and Mr. Surkov, who is a key aide to Vladimir Putin, in which they talked about how military reinforcements and aid was on their way. Another phone call in which separatist leaders were specifically asking for missiles that were more powerful than the shoulder-launched ones they had. And that essentially is the argument as to how the Buk anti-aircraft missile that brought MH17 came to be in eastern Ukraine. Christy?
Nick Paton Walsh reporting live for us. Thank you. Iran has commented for the first time on alleged U.S. video evidence of Iranian boats in the aftermath of oil tanker attacks in the Gulf of Oman last week. And the head of Iran's Revolutionary Guard has said that the presence of more U.S. troops in the Middle East poses no threat because, quote, they'll be able to strike American aircraft carriers if they need to. The warning comes after President Trump downplayed the threat of a military confrontation with Iran, telling Time magazine that he would not say he was considering military action against Tehran, but he would go to war if Tehran develops nuclear weapons. Now, Fred Plykin joins us now from Tehran. And Fred, we finally have comment from Iranian officials on that U.S. alleged video evidence. What are they saying?
Yeah, this came in the form of the Iranian defense minister, who on the sidelines of a cabinet meeting spoke a little earlier today, Christy, and basically he once again denied all the allegations made by the United States. He said that they are cowardly allegations, but the first time he also spoke specifically about that video released by the United States. He said essentially that first of all that it's unclear when exactly that video was made, what the time was when that video was made, but he specifically said about these kinds of rescue operations by those small Iranian boats that when they go to a rescue operation like that they conduct several things to try and secure the area and ensure safety in that area, which is one of the reasons why he says they kept going around that stricken tanker. Now, the Iranian defense minister went on to say, look, of course, all of this can be videotaped and those videotapes can be used, but at the same time, he says, there is in no way that could be used as any sort of documentation of anything. So once again, the Iranians rejecting the allegations, but for the first time, speaking directly about that evidence that the United States put forward. Of course, all of this coming as this sort of war of words between the Iranians and the U.S. Is continuing. Both sides, Christy, are saying they don't want an escalation in this conflict, but at the same time, both sides seem to be waiting for the other one to make the first step to tone things down.
And Fred, tensions are again flaring up there. Is there an off-ramp, especially with mixed messages from Washington?
I think right now it's going to be difficult to find a long-term off-ramp. I think if you look at both sides in all this, neither side wants this to escalate into some sort of shooting war. In fact, the head of Iran's National Security Council said once again today, this is not going to become a war between the United States and Iran, unequivocally. The Iranian leadership has said that. President Trump says he doesn't want this to escalate either. But at the same time, the long-term problem in all of this remains, which is the fact that the Iranians are saying, look, they signed on to this nuclear agreement. America signed on to the nuclear agreement. The Europeans signed on to the nuclear agreement. America has now left it and is hitting Iran with extreme sanctions while the Iranians are still abiding by the nuclear agreement. The Iranians are saying as long as this policy of maximum pressure continues by the United States, first of all, they're not going to talk. And second of all, they're going to continue to ramp up their nuclear program if they don't get any sort of sanctions relief. In fact, Hassan Rouhani, the country's president, said earlier today that them ramping the nuclear program up is the minimum of what they can do in light of the fact that they keep abiding by the nuclear deal and are not getting any of the benefits in return, Christy.
All right, Fred Plekin with the latest from Tehran. Thank you.